Good morning, and welcome to worship with the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura. I have to tell you, the favorite part of being a worship associate for me is watching the sanctuary fill up with old friends and new people, and the faces I just love it. It's wonderful to see you guys. So thank you so much. Anyway, we are a community of many beliefs, identities, origins, sexualities, and genders, and all are welcome to gather here as we keep love at the center of our lives and in the way that we move through the world. No matter how you're joining us today, via the wonders of technology or in person, we are glad you've come. I am Worship Associate Celia Ortenberg, and I'm joined this morning by Worship Associate Xenia Young. Our minister, the Reverend Dana Warsnop, is out of the pulpit today, and I'm so happy to welcome one of my favorite speakers, Michael Eselun, to the pulpit. Yay. Michael serves, for those of you who don't know and have never heard him before, he serves as a chaplain for the UCLA Center for Integrative Oncology. He is a two-time TEDx speaker, and he speaks extensively to healthcare professionals, patient populations, and faith communities across the country. He's worked as an activist, educator, addressing anti-LGBTQ bias in the larger community for well over 30 years. And he has been recognized by the UCLA Semel Institute for having lived a meaning-driven life. He also has 4 volumes of CDs available for purchase. You can contact Michael through his website, www.michaeleselun.com, or you can purchase one right after the service in Berg Hall. I want to thank everyone and remind everyone that sits on this side near the windows that this section we have for mask wearers. So thank you for your cooperation in this. It helps provide a safe and comfortable place for those in this congregation who feel more comfortable wearing masks. And in that way, we are a more welcoming congregation, and we do appreciate that. And I have a few announcements. The Environmental Action Team is meeting today at 11:30 in the conference room or via Zoom. All are welcome. Also, everyone is welcome to join us on Friday, December 13th for our annual holiday party hosted by the UUCV Family Ministry. There will be caroling, hot chocolate, ornament, and friend making. And this year we will have a white elephant gift exchange where you can re-gift an old treasured or an item that somebody else would love. That's always a lot of fun. Also, the longest night memorial service for our unhoused neighbors will be Saturday, December 21st at 3:30 p.m. in Ventura's Plaza Park, and on Sunday, December 22nd at 3:30 p.m. in Oxnard's Plaza Park. We will be collecting sleeping bags, coats, warm clothing for the next 3 Sundays. Please leave items in the box in Berg Hall. You can find all of this information and more in the weekly email message, UUVC this week. Now enter with me the sacred space. Bring with you what is yours, a burdened heart, a joyous song, a wearied spirit, a seeking mind. Bring the gift of yourself to the altar. It is an honorable gift. Let us enter sacred space.
call to worship this morning, I'd like to offer this from William Blake. It is right, it should be so. Man was made for joy and woe, and when this we rightly know, through the world we safely go. Joy and woe are woven fine, a clothing for the soul divine. Under every grief and pine runs a joy of silken twine.
Good morning. I am Worship Associate Xenia Young, and I also have a little passage from William Blake. William Blake reminds us that under every grief and pine runs a joy with silken twine. In a way, our faith community here is that silken twine, weaving each of our individual threads into a cloth that just might keep us warm enough to help us find our way. We invite those who are Zooming or streaming into this service to light a chalice or a candle at home as Michael lights the chalice this morning to symbolize that warmth and the guidance that can come with that sacred cloth.
Well, good morning, everybody. Hi, I am Zach Spencer, filling in for Carolyn Bierke. I invite you all to rise in body or in spirit as we sing number 299, Make Channels for the Streams of Love. Make channels for the streams of love, whose they may broadly run, and love as overflowing streams to fill them everyone. But if at any time we see such channels to provide, the very founts of love for us will soon be patched and dry. For if we share, if we would keep this gift, all else above, we cease to give, we cease to have, such is the law of love.
Good morning. My name is Lily Rappaport. I'm the Director of Family Ministry, and I'm going to call all those young or young at heart to come join me in front here for the time for the child in each of us. Come on. Good to see you guys. So today's story is about a young girl who has a really strong love for making things with her yarn. It's called Extra Yarn by Mac Barnett, illustrated by John Klassen. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town where everywhere you looked was either white of snow or black from the soot from the chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. So she went home and knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars, too. And there was still extra yarn. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed, and he said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out he was. And even after she'd made a sweater for Nate and his dog, and for herself and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet!" shouted Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone! Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around looking at you." "Then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabelle said, "so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." But it turned out she could. And she did, even one for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had extra yarn. So she knit sweaters for her mom, her dad, and for Mr. Pendleton and Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. And so she made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And even then, Annabelle had extra yarn. She made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats, and for other animals too. Soon, people thought, soon Annabelle will run out of yarn. But it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. Look at that. Things began to change in the little town. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn. And people came to visit from all around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. And one day, an archduke who was very fond of clothes sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. "Little girl," said the archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I'm willing to offer you $1,000,000. "No, thank you," said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The archduke's mustache twitched. $2,000,000, he said. Annabelle shook her head. "No, thanks." $10,000,000, shouted the archduke. "Take it or leave it." "Leave it," said Annabelle. "I won't sell the yarn." And she didn't. So that night, the archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house. And they stole the box. And they took it to the archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea, back to his castle. And then the archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair, and he took out the box and he lifted its lid and he looked inside. His mustache quivered, it shivered, it trembled, and he hurled the box out the window and shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." But it turned out she was. And Annabelle and her happy little knitting yarn, extra yarn, is going to last her probably for the rest of her life. Yeah. So if you would, that's our story. And we're going to ask you to stand up in the center aisle here so that we can sing the children out to their classes.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go.
Every week, this congregation gives away the offering to a community in our, to donation in our community or to people within this church. Today, our offering goes to Doctors Without Borders to provide medical and humanitarian assistance to the people around the world who need it most. Every day, teams of Doctors Without Borders deliver emergency medical aid to people in crisis. With humanitarian projects in over 70 countries, these teams are often the first on the scene when people's lives are upended by conflict, disease, outbreaks, or natural human-made disasters. As they are doing right now in their work in Gaza, they often work in the presence of war and destruction and risk their own lives to provide the care that no one else is on hand to give. Teams on the ground in Gaza report that the healthcare system there has been so dismantled that up to 14,000 people in need of specialized medical care are waiting to be evacuated. Still, of the 32 children and their caretakers that Doctors Without Borders recently applied to be removed to Jordan, only 6 were allowed to leave. The brave teams from Doctors Without Borders continue their health work though 8 of their colleagues have been killed so far. Their willingness to continue to provide medical care despite the dangers and the many barriers that they face remind us that injustice and suffering are conditions we all must take action against. So thank you all for giving generously, as you always do.
I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am stronger every moment, every day. My mind is willing and my heart is open wide. I trust my instincts, let the universe be my guide. I vow to live a life that's real and true and free, as I continue walking in this mystery. There may be walls, there may be roadblocks in my way, but I can choose to take a higher path each day. And now I know that what I thought was safe and sound was only habit and regret that held me down. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am kinder every moment, every day. And I am grateful every moment, every day. And I'm more loving every moment, every day.
Thank you very much, Zach. That was beautiful. We are grateful for the generosity of this congregation, which helps weave the threads of love that we call the tapestry of community.
And now it's the time in the service where we take a moment and we share some of the sorrows and some of the joys that touch all of our lives. We place stones in water for both the celebrations and the sadness in our hearts, making ripples that are felt throughout our community. You too can submit a joy or sorrow for sharing via a link on the website, uuventura.org, or a link in our Thursday email bulletin, UUVC This Week, and those received by 8 p.m. on the I invite you now to speak into the gathered community or write into the Zoom chat the names of those that you wish to celebrate or memorialize, or those in need of the loving embrace of this beloved community. Celia will now place one final stone in the water for all the joys and sorrows yet unspoken in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. May we be truly grateful for all that is our life.
Good. Please join each other in singing our meditation hymn, number 184, Be Ye Lamps Unto Yourselves. I don't know how many people are familiar with it, so we'll be going through it 3 times. It's short, though. It's fine. Be ye lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourselves as to the only lamp. Be ye lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourselves as to the only lamp. Be ye lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourselves as to the only lamp.
Today's reading is from the great Parker Palmer, and it's Everything Falls Away. Sooner or later, everything, your successes, large and small, your failures too, those moments when you were light, alongside the times you became one with the night, the friends, the people who loved you, those who might have wished you ill, none of this is forever. All of it is soon to go, or going, or long gone. Everything falls away, except the thread you've been following, unknowing, all along. The thread that strings together all you've been and all you've done. The thread you didn't know you were tracking until, towards the end, you see that the thread is what stays as everything else falls away. Follow that thread as far as you can, and you'll find that it does not end, but weaves into the unimaginable vastness of life. Your life never was the solo turn it seemed to be. It was always part of that great weaving of nature and humanity and immensity. We come to know only as we follow our own small threads to the place where they merge with that boundless whole. Each of our threads runs its course, then joins in life together. This magnificent tapestry, this masterpiece in which we live forever.
As we move into a time of silent reflection, contemplation, I invite you to get comfortable in your seats. Maybe put your feet on the floor, close your eyes, or dim them. And let's take a few nice, deep breaths together as we settle in. As we breathe and move into this time of reflection, let the words of Wendell Berry wash over and seep inside. It may be that when we no longer know what to do, we've come to our real work. And that when we no longer know which way to go, we've come to our real journey. The mind that is not baffled is not employed. The impeded stream is the one that sings.
Rose and flows of angel hair, and ice cream castles in the air, and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, but now they only block the sun. They rain and they snow on everyone. So many things I could have done, but clouds got in the way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's clouds' illusion. I recall I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing that you feel as every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show. You leave them laughing when you go, and if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions. I recall I really don't know love at all. Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds, I've looked at life that way, But now, friends, they're acting strange. They shake their heads, they say I've changed. Well, something's lost, but something's gained in living every day. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life at all.
Well, good morning. It's always wonderful to come back here. This is my 21st visit back to this congregation. It also, as December 1st, happens to be World AIDS Day since 1988. So I carry with me lots of my gay brothers who didn't make it as we move into this service. Sometimes, as an oncology chaplain, when I'm getting acquainted with a patient, I will often ask, tell me, what's a perfect day look like for you? Before you got sick, you don't have to work, you're feeling pretty good. What would that day be for you? My intention is to find out in a quick and easy way what floats their boat, where they get their juice in life. What is it that gives it meaning? And it can often be a telling answer. Although sometimes I admit I do sit in judgment when someone fumbles for an answer and says, I don't know, watching TV, I guess. Carl, newly diagnosed with lung cancer, took no time at all to respond. Oh, watching my son play soccer and then taking him out for an ice cream. That answer reveals so much, doesn't it? A few years ago, I had a patient, Casey, who gave me a little Christmas gift. It was a teeny spool of thread wrapped up in a poem written by William Stafford called The Way It Is. There's a thread you follow. It runs among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you're pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it's hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen, people get hurt or die. You suffer and grow old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. Such a beautifully concise summation, isn't it? And what a tender, sweet gift. Carl had no trouble at all identifying his thread. Would you? What would yours be? The older I get, the more my story unfolds, I find myself wondering if it's really as simple as all that. Is it as clean as all that? Is that thread really unbreakable? Is it really unchanging? I thought I had a good grip on it, but then divorce happened, or cancer, or bankruptcy, or Parkinson's disease, or the career that seemed to define me just vanished. Do I have to find a new thread, or redefine the old one? Or am I simply to surrender to my faith in the idea that the damn thread exists in the first place? If the thread does exist, and I like to believe that it does, I think it could be an arduous journey to drill down and identify it. A journey that can take years, if not decades. That kind of spiritual distillation, if you will, is a challenge that I think confronts so many cancer patients along the way. If I could no longer be, do, or have what I once was, who would I even be then? Do I even exist? If I'm no longer the supermom who never misses a soccer game or a birthday party, am I even still the mom? And yet, while we do have a good grip on it, it can serve as a kind of guy wire, stabilizing us in stormy times. But I find myself wondering if that thread might be conceptualized not just as a thread to run through our lives or beneath them, but what about a thread to wrap around our lives, to hold them together, to give them some coherence, to help us find a place for every piece in our puzzle. A puzzle that might have to be arranged and rearranged time and again because life demands it. But still, it can be a challenging journey to drill down and find it. My sister Terry was quite a pioneer in women's surfing in the 60s and 70s, competing at the national level. She even co-produced and co-directed the first professional women's surfing championship, the Hang Ten Invitational in Malibu in 1975. She's 75 years old now. She still loves to surf, though it grieves her, as you might imagine, that she can't do all the things she used to be able to do, or certainly not as easily. She told me that not long ago she bumped into an old surfing chum from back in the day at the beach, and they were bemoaning this particular state of affairs. And he said, "Terry, you know what I came to realize? It was always about getting wet." I love that. I thought it was about thrills or big waves or competition or winning, but maybe it was just about getting wet. That's distillation. As an old former professional dancer, I confront the very same challenge every week in dance class, coming face to face with the limitations of a body that won't do what it once could. And it's hard, but a few years ago, I came to a different relationship with those limitations, having everything to do with essence. I've never seen a dance performance that knocked me in the gut with more power, more intensity, than Donna McKechnie in the original Broadway production of A Chorus Line in New York City. That was some kind of heady experience for this 21-year-old professional dancer from Los Angeles on his first trip to New York. Kind of transcendent, actually. Well, a number of years ago, Donna performed at an AIDS benefit in Los Angeles. She was maybe in her early 60s at the time. She'd put on quite a bit of weight. She wore a long, flowing caftan-like dress. She offered a highly truncated version of her tour de force from A Chorus Line, the music and the mirror. Oh, there were echoes of the original choreography, here and there a remnant, an arm gesture, the flick of a head, hitting a line. I sat in my seat and just sobbed. Not out of sadness for what was lost or what was missing, but moved to tears by the unmistakable beauty of essence, of her essence, an essence that might have even been camouflaged once upon a time by her youth and agility. In some ways, it was a more potent performance than had she been soaring across that stage at the Schubert in front of a bank of mirrors in that red dress. Distillation. I'd been told that Keith had been a brilliant architect, but when I met him a few months after his glioblastoma diagnosis, that brain tumor had robbed him of all that brilliance. He found it hard to speak a coherent sentence. And yet he loved to spend time with me every week, so we would meet for an hour. Hard to have a conversation. But there was one sentence he used quite easily and often. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." As if his whole essence had been distilled down to a sense of apology for not being who he once was, for not being able to communicate clearly. I finally had to say, "Keith, one rule in here, no more apology. We can use this time any way you like. We can just sit in silence. We can meditate. We can just look at each other and smile or cry or pray. But no, I'm sorry. This has to be a place where you don't feel like you're letting anybody down. Certainly not me." I didn't get to know him in the context of his brilliance, and yet I kind of fell in love with the guy, with the sweetness of his smile, his tender heart, his gentle spirit. Distillation. Yes, it can be challenging to drill down and identify that thread, but finding a way for it to wrap around our story, to give it that coherence, well, that's another matter altogether. Particularly when some tragedy has befallen us, some diagnosis. Such catastrophes often demand that we let go of so much. Most particularly, our expectations of how we thought life should be, could be, wanted it to be, hoped it would be. Sometimes we even have to let go of hope altogether, or at least hope that things will get better. In some circumstances, they won't get better. Guaranteed to get worse. Is it still possible to find a way to wrap that thread around our lives, to hold it together at least long enough to take the next steps that life demands of us? A year ago, last October, I got to take a wonderful 2-week solo journey to Turkey. And there I got a vivid reminder of something I've long known to be true. There's the thing, and there's our experience of the thing, and they're not the same thing. Ask anyone, and they will tell you one of the primo sights to see in all of Turkey is the Blue Mosque in Istanbul, and it is indeed magnificent. But on that particular Sunday morning, after waiting through an impossibly long line, going through security, navigating all the hordes of visitors inside, my experience of the place did not begin to match the magnitude of the architecture. By contrast, I had a far more moving, even tearful experience visiting a far more modest 13th century wooden mosque called Eşrefoglu in a teeny village called Beyşehir. The experience is distinct from the thing itself. For over 25 years, I served as a co-chair and co-founder of GLIDE, a now defunct organization, Gays and Lesbians Initiating Dialogue for Equality. In our 20-some years, I trained dozens and dozens of volunteer speakers. Each had to craft their own coming out story to use as part of the engagement presentations. I would always encourage them, share your experience, not your story. Your story is just the facts. I came out to my mom when I was 16. Your experience, on the other hand, might sound like, for me, coming out to my mom was the big one. I stood the most to lose there if my mom rejected me, and I knew I couldn't take it back. I was so scared. Exploring the experience of our life story might lead us to our thread, that through line, no matter how we define it. And that's the thing, we always have the power within us to redefine, reinterpret that thread time and time again. Life just demands it. Esther had been a brilliant art historian, scholar, curator, professor. I met her for the first time on her first day of chemotherapy, being treated for ovarian cancer. She was so captivating that by the end of our visit, I was ready to quit my job then and there and go back to school just so I could study German Expressionism with Esther. Her spirit was that infectious. Well, after decades of scholarship and study and teaching and curating exhibits, she was offered the chance of a lifetime for her. She was invited to curate a major retrospective for the German Expressionist painter Max Beckmann at a world-class museum, something she had longed for. But the thing is, these things have to be planned years in advance. Could she make that commitment, given her diagnosis, given her treatment plan? She wrestled with questions, as you might imagine, but Michael, maybe I have to say yes, because maybe that's just the commitment, the affirmation that my spirit, my body needs to heal. What do you think? Sadly, her disease progressed and she needed to decline the invitation. As we wandered through the rubble of her loss and disappointment, we looked at what was really lost here. What's the essence of it, and was it lost? Was the essence really about this recognition? Was it really about this world-class museum? Was it even about the art? Or was the essence her passion, her capacity to inspire, to give breath to others, as she had countless students. Myself, one graduate student changed her whole dissertation, her whole field work, her whole course of study after one class with Esther. What if that capacity to inspire, that passion, is her version of getting wet? What if that's the thread that can wrap around her story and give it meaning? As tragic as it was. A few years ago, I came upon an essay in The Atlantic in which the essayist drew a distinction between obituary virtues and eulogy virtues. Obituaries, when you think about it, often read like a resume. Just the facts. He was born here, went to school there, married this person, had these kids, worked here, won these awards, and then he died. Eulogies, on the other hand, often reveal a far more nuanced, multidimensional view of who a person was. He was a guy who always made me laugh, no matter what. He was the one who would show up to help you move or paint your living room without being asked. Through one lens, the obituary might be the story of our lives, and the eulogy is our response to the story. How did we translate it, move it into a way of being in the world, in a way of engaging through life? What do you suppose our lives would look like if we recalibrated them to focus on eulogy virtues rather than obituary virtues? Those eulogy virtues might not only lead us to our thread, but they could also lead us to that meaning, to give us that coherence for which we long. You know how some people, myself included, God knows, will post pictures on social media, Facebook, of a beloved dog or cat, asking for prayers and good wishes as their beloved dog or cat faces some health crisis, and your heart breaks for them. And then in a few days, there's another picture as our friend shares their inconsolable grief over having to say goodbye to their furry family member. You kind of die a little bit for them, and you remember when it was your turn at that awful juncture, or you live in mortal fear of what's coming down the pike for you and your furry little buddy. And then in a few weeks or a month, there's another picture, or 12, of the most adorable little kitten or puppy. Meet Oscar, everybody. I'm so in love. Have you ever seen anything so precious in your life? I sometimes wonder if the specificity of that little puppy or kitten matters at all. What matters is there's this bigger love, this longing that needs to be given away. And this is the little guy who showed up, so we're just going to love each other forever, and that's that. I certainly don't mean to denigrate the uniqueness of any of our furry family members, God knows. But I think this love is bigger than our love for our beloved old dog or cat. It's bigger than our love for this adorable kitten or puppy. It's bigger than all of us. That bigger love might be the very thing that's at the end of all of our threads. The sweet, uncomplicated, uncompromising love I felt from my grandmother Anne certainly points me in the direction of my thread, if it isn't the thread itself. She's been dead for 35 years, and her voice is the voice I hear so vividly in my head. I carry it in my heart. She lived a hard life, grew up in a large, poor Italian family, 10 siblings, an abusive household, beaten regularly. After one such beating by my great-grandfather, in which he broke a shovel across her back, she'd had enough. That night she ran away into the arms of a young man who would be my grandfather for no other reason than he was there. If she hadn't been beaten, I wouldn't be here. She was 15 years old. That marriage didn't last too long, but it got her out And my grandmother was undaunted. She never stopped looking for love, and she gave it away in abundance to her kids, her grandkids, her great-grandkids, her friends, anybody who would ask. My mom and I used to reminisce about Grandma, and we'd chuckle a little, remembering what it was like when you'd tell her about some disappointment, some sorrow in your life. And the most she would offer would be, well, keep your chin up, dearie. It wasn't nearly as flip as it sounds. It was said with so much compassion and tenderness. And I actually think it reflects a kind of hard-won wisdom that she would have been hard-pressed to articulate, but a wisdom that would say that I know there's nothing I can do or say to make this any better, so I'm not going to insult you by saying it. I just want you to know I love you so much, and I want you to be happy, and I don't want you to hurt. So the best I've got is keep your chin up, dearie. Sometimes a patient will ask me for a prayer. I will often include this. May we keep our hearts and eyes open to recognize blessings that we don't know we're looking for. May that be so. I don't know, though. But in the meantime, keep your chin up, dearie. So be it.
Well, I invite you all to rise in body or in spirit as you help each other sing number 108, My Life Flows On, in endless song. My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off hymn that hails a new creation. Though all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music's ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars? I know the truth, it liveth. What though the darkness round me close? Songs in the night it giveth, to calm that shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven on earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
Please join me in reading the words on the screen as we prepare to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, or the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. Those we carry into our lives until we are together again.
All of you in the sanctuary are invited after the service for coffee, tea, and bagels in our and conversation in our community room, Berg Hall. Also, those of you on Zoom can stay online, and members and friends can come and greet you online as they're in there. Also, visitors and guests are enthusiastically invited to stop by our popular connecting table right through the double doors and for a chat. Nearby is our welcome table, where a welcome team member will answer questions about our church and the denomination. Michael will also be available in Berg Hall with CDs to purchase. And the Environmental Action Team will be meeting right here in the conference room, now behind those screens, at 11:30.
Let's take just a nice, big old deep breath. We breathe in the love, the intention, the commitment of this community to come together and to connect. As we exhale, can we release the light and the radiance of our coming together, not only back to each other, but to the larger circles of life. As we move forward from here back into our lives, may we keep our eyes open for the thread, realizing at times it may be slippery, easy to miss, but it's strong. May it guide us always to the place of bigger love. So be it.